It is hilarious how wrong they were. For some reason, the ladies of The View have suddenly become economic experts, at least in their own minds. This time they took aim at Trump's recent tariffs on Canada and Mexico, confidently declaring it was a disaster. But as expected, their take missed the bigger picture entirely, and today, of course, we're breaking down their reaction, exposing why their argument falls apart, and explaining the real reason behind Trump's moves. As always, make sure to subscribe and hit the notification bell for more videos just like this.
He is signaling to our allies, long-held allies, largest trading partners. These are the people who vote with us in the international organizations. These are the people who send soldiers to go to war with us when we are fighting, in the Middle East, when we're fighting any sort of war. Canada sends its soldiers. These are the people that have been by us time and time again. As if deporting good, hardworking immigrants wasn't enough. As if emboldening the racial profiling and bigotry against Latinos wasn't enough. As if revoking temporary protective status for 500,000 Venezuelans wasn't enough. As if bullying Panama wasn't enough. Now he's going to tax our tequila and avocados?
Yeah.
At this point, Anna would probably trade national security for an open bar tab. But tariffs aren't some new or radical concept. They've been used as economic tools for centuries, even between allies. Just because two countries have friendly relations does not mean they won't look out for their own interest. Trade is about competition, not about holding hands singing Kumbaya. And since she likes talking about our friends, why didn't she bring up Canadian tariffs on American dairy products? The EU has also slapped 10% tariffs on American car imports and even some agricultural products over the years, while the US has lower rates. The reality is every nation does what's best for itself, so no one has the right to cry just because they're getting the same treatment they were sending our way for years now.
But I think the open question of people right now who are really nervous because these costs will fall to American consumers is this a bargaining chip for Trump because he wants to get something from these countries, or is he going to go full bore and commit to this? And there's early indications it may be a negotiating tactic. So the Mexican president, as you mentioned, came out and said there's a pause in the tariff. She's agreeing to send 10,000 Mexican troops to the U.S. border to help with border crossings. He's having a second call with Canadian Prime Minister Justin Trudeau today, see if there may be a concession there. And I would just say this. I've traveled all over the world as part of U.S. delegations in diplomacy in my previous capacity. And what makes America the most powerful nation on earth is that we have friends and allies. And it's because we engage in international trade. We don't bully our friends. We show up and give international aid. And if we stop doing that, which is what I feel like Trump is leaning into, I'm not saying that that's fully what he's doing yet. We're ceding our role of global superpower to China because they will step in, they will show up, and they will be friends to the people that we're giving not a nice signal to in Canada and elsewhere.
Oh yes, the classic Chinese strategy of luring countries into debt traps while seizing control of their critical infrastructure. Two prime examples, Zambia and Sri Lanka have already gone into default, unable to make even interest payments on loans financing the construction of ports, mines, and power plants. I say we don't poke the bear and let the Chinese continue with this successful policy. The countries that Trump has targeted so far stand zero chance against the might of the US economy. Some reports suggest that had the tariffs gone into full effect, it could inevitably push Canada to a full-blown recession. This includes reducing Canadian GDP from 3.4 to 4.2% and pushing up Canadian unemployment rate between 2 to 3 percentage points. Mexico wasn't in a much better position either, according to the New York Times. If the tensions go unresolved, that could lead to factory closures, job losses, and a recession. Trump knew the leverage he had, and instead of endless negotiations, well, he made them act like responsible neighbors, whether they liked it or not.
They're like, America first, America first. Let's make everything here. Let's do everything here. Let's be very insulated. And that sounds good. It sounds patriotic, but we are geopolitically connected to the rest of the world. We don't want to be isolated from everyone else. But more importantly, Canada and Mexico are the top buyers of U.S. exports in more than 72% of all export categories. 72%. We send our stuff over there. So now if there are these tariffs, that's going to cause problems, billions of dollars of problems. And if the tariffs, if they in turn return the tariffs, let's say it's your coffee, you have a coffee store, and you're going to sell a cup of coffee, and your coffee is $5. We know how expensive coffee is, right? Yeah. You sell coffee for $5. Now the coffee beans coming in from Mexico are now $5 more. You think if I own that shop, I'm going to eat that $5? No. Your cup of coffee just costs $10.
Did she just say geopolitically connected to the rest of the world? Not even AI-generated nonsense could come up with this. Seriously, what was she trying to say here? We're talking about tariffs, which is a purely economic issue. Sure, some political concessions have come into, but slapping a meaningless buzzword-filled phrase on it doesn't make her sound smart. Just proves how out of her depth she really is. This is the problem with this show. They throw around assumptions on topics that they have zero understanding about, but when you strip the fluff, there's really no substance, and yet shows like The View are considered a prime source of news for people on the left. That's why independent shows like ours matter, since we know that our stuff isn't just bought. We try to speak the truth. So drop a like and subscribe to help us reach more people like you. Whoopi then brought up the issue of food safety, to which Sunny had a condescending reaction, which led to the crowd being in complete shock.
There is a reason people don't really take a lot of our things that we export, because the quality of what we put out has not always been the best. When we look at what's in our foods, other countries won't accept food from us if it's chock full of the stuff that
preservatives and shelf
we allow to
stabilizers.
go through. So you can talk about making American and building American, but that also requires that we make big changes as to how we do things.
Maybe R.F. Kennedy Jr. can fix that.
Maybe he can. At least he's forcing these issues into the public spotlight, something that wasn't even possible before RFK Jr. Just consider this number. According to The Guardian, more than 1 million people die from diet-related disease in the US every year. Hey Sunny, does that sound acceptable to you? Or are you too busy rolling your eyes making snarky comments just to prove how superior you are? And to wrap things up, we have Scott Jennings perfectly summarizing what Trump's quick trade war achieved in record time.
There are no tariffs. There's a pause on this because, as has been reported by CNN and every other news outlet, both Mexico and Canada have reached agreements today with Donald Trump to do what we want them to do, which is to put people and technology and resources at the border to stop the flow of people and drugs, illegal immigration, stem the tide. That is the whole point of this exercise, and that is apparently what is happening. And yes, there have been some troops there in Mexico. This is an agreement to do permanent deployment. And yes, some of this stuff in Canada was already announced, but now they were dragging their feet. Now their feet are held to the fire. They've got 30 days to really implement, and they can't pussyfoot around anymore. So the point of this exercise today, to me, had less to do with trade and more to do with saying to our neighbors, you need to be better neighbors.
Exactly. Just like Panama and Colombia before them, Canada and Mexico quickly chose the common sense route. The US wasn't asking for anything extraordinary. We just wanted to protect our interests, and that's exactly why people voted for Trump in the first place. As Caroline Levitt would say, promises made, promises kept. It's a simple concept, really, but I guess that's too much to expect from The View. I'd love to know your thoughts here, so let's get the conversation rolling in the comments down below. And if you enjoyed this video, please share with your friends. Thanks for watching. I'll see you in the next one.